around there, 77 to the nudge. Shabbat Shalom to those who are physically here and also to those who are following our service online. Our Shabbat Shacharit service starts on page 74 of our Siddur. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. And on the facing page, we read, "May the one whose spirit is with us in every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bear the burdens of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked and take the friendless into their homes. May the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest." On page 78. Elohai neshama shenatata bi torahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi torahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi torahi. Ata v'ata, ata yirtzata, ata nafachta bi, v'ata m'shamra b'kibi, kol zaman shehaneshama b'kibi, modeh ani lefanecha, Adonai Elohai, v'Elohei avotai v'imotai, v'bon kol ha'ma'asim, Adon kol ha'neshamot, Baruch ata Adonai, Asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol b'saish. Let's turn to page 83, the middle of page, top of page 83. And read together. As I awaken, let this be my thought. May my day be filled with acts of loving kindness. Let me be drawn to discernment, learning and discernment, and may my actions be shaped by mitzvot. Keep me from iniquity, disgrace, and sin. May I not be overwhelmed by temptation or despair. Distance me from evil people and false friends. Let me cultivate a life of goodness. May my hands reach out in kindness, and I will serve God through acts of righteousness. Today and every day, may I merit your mercy by living my life with compassion and love. Holy One of blessing, draw me to your words. Teach me the art of sacred living. Baruch atah Adonai, hamalamed chasadim tovim la'amo Yisrael. On page 105, we find Yishtabach, a doxology, a praise of God, which contains 15 different praises for God, which is interesting because the last sentence in this bracha, the Chatimah, part of the Chatimah after Baruch atah Adonai, has 15 words, and as the commentary says, 15 is also Yud Hey, which is Yah, which is the name of God. Yud is 10, Hey is 5. Add them together, you get 15. So as we share Yishtabach on page 105, we are essentially invoking God's name for God's wonders. And that leads us into Chatzi Kaddish and into Baruch Hu. We invite you to rise as you are able on page 105 first for Yishtabach. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu, Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol VaHaKadosh, B'Shamayim U'Va'aretz, Ki Lecha Na'eh Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'Elohei Avoteinu V'Imoteinu, Sheu Shvacha Halel V'Zimra, Ozu Memshala Netzach Gudula U'Gevura, Tihila V'Tiferet Kedusha U'Malchut, Berachot V'Hodaot Me'ata Ve'ad Olam, Baruch Atah Adonai, El Melech Gadol B'Tishbachot, El HaHodaot Adon HaNiflahot, Havochei B'Shirei Zimra, Melech Elchei HaOlamim. Chatzi Kaddish on page 106.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, Ba'alma divrach chiruteh, ve'amlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uvyomechon, uvchayedecho bet Yisrael, bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, v'meru. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach, Le'alam Ulal Me'al Maya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitbar, V'yitshomam, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yithaleh, V'yithalal, Shemei Dekudusha, Berechu, Le'elam Yinkol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma v'meru.
Amen. On page 108. Please be seated. As we turn to page 110 and read together. Praised are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy you illumine the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai! In wisdom you formed them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Adonai our God, for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created, may they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMa'orot. On page 112. We find Ahava Rabbah, which is the opposite prayer, or the, maybe not opposite, complementary prayer. In the evening service, we have Ahavat Olam, the eternal love of God for us. Here we have Ahava Rabbah, the great love of God for us, and that's a deliberate thing before Shema itself, which is about our love for God. Ahava Rabbah Havtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chemla Gdola B'Teira Chamalta Aleinu Ba'avu Avoteinu V'Imotenu Shebatchu V'cha V'Telemdem Chukei Chaim Kentuchonenu Tlamdenu Hamrachem Rachem Aleinu V'Tem B'Libenu Lahavin Ulhaskir Lishmoam Lilmodu Lelamed Lishmo V'Lasot Ukayem Et Kol Divrei Talmud Torah Techa B'Ahava V'ha'erinenu B'Torah Techa V'dahabek L'beinu B'mitzvotecha V'yachel Levavinu Li'ahava U'yira Et Shemecha V'lo nebosh V'lo nikalem V'lo nikashel le'olam va'ed Ki v'shem kodshecha hagadol v'hanorad b'atachnu Nagila v'nismacha v'shuatecha. The foot of the page. Baruch atah Adonai abocher ba'amo Yisrael b'Ahava. Either seated or standing according to your custom, Shema starts on page 114.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malachuto, Leolam Va'ed.
Shema continues on page 116.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha ayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta ba b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'shokbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam lehot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha.
The third paragraph of Shema is on page 118.
Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta alehem v'asu lahem tzitzit al canfe vigdehem ledorotam, v'nadnu al tzitzit hakana, petil techelet, v'hayat lachem, l'tzitzit uritem oto, uzchartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, v'asitem otam, v'lo taturu, acharei levavchem, acharei enechem, asher atem zonim acharehem, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
In the middle of page 121. The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else. May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore. You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor, asks God. We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God and deserving of blessing. We come to Tefillah, the central prayer of our service. The opening reflection, meditation on page 124, we will sing together. And then we will continue our Tefillah silently. I shouldn't say silently, I should say quietly. Silent prayer doesn't involve moving the mouth at all. It is meditative and reflective. And that is part of Jewish prayer, meditation and reflection, but only at certain points. When it comes to quiet prayer traditionally means loud enough that I can hear it, but not that the person next to me can hear it. And so we do move our mouths, we do say these prayers, and it creates a different kind of kavanah, a different kind of intention. So I invite you to rise as you are able on page 124. We'll sing that opening reflection, meditation on page 124, and then we'll continue with quiet prayer. I invite you to pray any of the following paragraphs until page 142. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufia giteilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Shalom bimoma. Uyase shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru himru amen. Ose shalom bimoma. Uyase shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru imru amen. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu. V'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu. V'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Please be seated. Earlier on, we didn't say our blessing before study and have a study passage because there isn't a minyan of people here, and so we are not going to read from the Torah scroll, but we're going to study from the Chumash. And it may be that there's a few more people online, I appreciate. It's an interesting question about can you count people in a minyan if you don't know they're there, based on last week's viewing numbers and so on. That's actually an interesting halachic question, or at least I think it's interesting. What I tend to do is do a bit of both, so that we say Baruch Hu, we say our liturgy, we did the tefillah silently. Baruch Hu you traditionally would only say with a minyan itself. So I assume there's a minyan for the prayer, but for the Torah reading itself, if there's no Torah itself, if there's no minyan physically present to witness the Torah reading, I tend not to bring out the Torah scroll. Our Torah portion is the portion of Mishpatim. So we're going to say the blessing before study, which is La'asok b'divrei Torah, which thanks God who commands us to engage in the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So in our Plaut Chumash, the Torah reading is going to be from page 590. Page 590. I'm going to chant it, when I say Torah reading, I'm going to chant it on page 590 and onwards. I'm going to use the English trope, so for those who have their bar mitzvah coming up and you think, that's not how those notes sound, don't worry. As I mentioned last week, I've been here 10 years in July, and for some reason the American trope has never stuck in my head. So maybe it's because I had been teaching B'nai Mitzvah ever since just after I was Bar Mitzvah, which was a while ago, and so it's just the English trope is too embedded in my head. For those not following in the Plaut Chumash, we're on Exodus chapter 24, verse 1, and I'm going to chant from verses 1 to 11 and then share some thoughts. So Exodus chapter 24, verses 1 to 11 in the Plaut Chumash on page 590. Vel Moshe Hamale El Adonai Ata V'Aharon Nadav Avihu V'Shivim Miziknei Yisrael V'Hishtachavitem Merachok V'Nigash Moshe Levado El Adonai V'Hem Lo Yigashu V'ham lo yalu imo, v'yavo Moshe, v'yisaper la'am et kol asher divrei Adonai, ve'et kol hamishpatim, v'yan kol ha'am, kol echad v'yomeru, kol hadvarim, asher diber Adonai na'aseh, Vayichtov Moshe את כל דברי אדוני, וישכם בבוקר, ויבן מזבח תחת ההר, ושתם 10 מצבה, ל12 שבטי ישראל, וישלח את נערי בני ישראל, ויעלו עולות, ויזבחו זבחים שלמים לאדוני פרים. ויקח משה חצי הדם, וישם בעגנות, וחצי הדם זרק על המזבח. ויקח ספר הברית, ויקרא באוזני העם, ויאמרו כל אשר דיבר אדוני נעשה ונשמע. ויקח משה את הדם, ויזרוק על העם, ויאמר הנה דם הברית אשר כרת אדוני עמכם על כל הדברים האלה. ויעל משה ואהרון נדב ואביהו ו70 מזקני ישראל, ויראו את אלוהי ישראל ותחת רגליו כמעשה לבנת הספיר וכעצם השמיים לתוהם. ועל אצילי בני ישראל לא שלח ידו, ויחזו את האלוהים, ויאכלו וישתו. God said to Moses, "Come up to the Eternal, with Aaron, Nadav, and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel, and bow low from afar. But only Moses shall come near the Eternal. The others shall not come near, and the people shall not come up with him at all." Moses went and repeated to the people all the commands of the Eternal and all the rules. And all the people answered with one voice, saying, "All the things that the Eternal has commanded, we will do." Moses then wrote down all the commands of the Eternal. Early in the morning, he set up an altar at the foot of the mountain, with 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel. He designated some young men among the Israelites, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed bulls as offerings of well-being to the Eternal. Moses took one part of the blood and put it in basins, and the other part of the blood he dashed against the altar. And then he took the record of the covenant and read it aloud to the people. And they said, "All that the Eternal has spoken, we will faithfully do." Na'aseh v'nishma. Moses took the blood and dashed it on the people and said, "This is the blood of the covenant which the Eternal now makes with you concerning all these commands." Then Moses and Aaron, Nadav and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel ascended. And they saw the God of Israel, and under God's feet there was the likeness of a pavement of sapphire, like the very sky for purity. And yet God did not raise God's hand against the leaders of the Israelites. They beheld God, and they ate and drank. Allow me to share some thoughts on this, appreciating that we focused on this for about an hour and a half this morning in Torah study, because this is really quite an extraordinary Torah portion. And it really, this is one of the very few Torah portions that really demands that we go beyond the literal pshat, the literal plain meaning of the text. Because the idea that they see God's feet, the idea of this mystical encounter that under God's feet is a pavement of sapphire, and then they eat and drink, seems absurd at first glance. Do they take backpacks with them? Do they take bagels and lox and cream cheese? What is it that they're doing here? If you had a divine encounter, how is it possible that immediately afterwards you say, "Okay, but now I'm a bit hungry"? And I'm aware that there is a forthcoming bar mitzvah ceremony at which the bar mitzvah is himself going to be talking about the encounter with God and the danger of the encounter with God. So how come, if that encounter with God is so fraught with danger? How come in Exodus, yeah, it's you, he's worked it out now. Exodus chapter 33, how come when God says to Moses, you cannot see my face and live, how is it that these people see God and then sit down and have a picnic? What is happening here? This could help in your draft as well if you really want. You could add it if you wish. What we have here is something that goes beyond the literal. Moses, Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu, and 70 elders, they're told to go to approach God, it's in verse 1, to come up to God and bow low from afar. But the actual place isn't specified. And so they get quite close. Perhaps they get a bit too close. Because verse 11, God didn't raise God's hand against the leaders of the Israelites. Why not? If they behold God, why is it that God doesn't say, now you die? Because that's exactly what God says to Moses in Exodus 33. If you see my face, you cannot see my face and live. Maybe it's because God wasn't clear enough. It's a good message to all parents. When God turns to them and says, you may only see me from afar, maybe God's understanding of afar and the people's understanding of afar is different. So they come up and they actually get too close. And God realizes and says, wow, I meant afar all the way over there, but you understood afar as being much closer. So I can't necessarily punish you now. But, according to one commentary, God does decide to punish them later. God does decide to kill them later, in fact. So first, Nadav and Avihu are killed when they offer strange fire later, and so we automatically assume that that's because Nadav and Avihu basically get the mixture wrong, get the recipe wrong, and it basically blows up in their face, essentially, in a physical and spiritual way. But Rashi, the commentator, turns around and says, no, they are punished at that point for bringing in something which shouldn't have been there. They had knowledge of God unlike other people. And so that is the point when God kills them. And similarly, the elders, the 70 elders, later when the people complain, that's when God kills them. So there is perhaps a sense that God doesn't raise God's hand against them here, but will do later. Why? Because God's just given the Torah. Jethro has just rearranged the people. This is the highlight of the Jewish people's existence. It would be really bad to take out 74 elders, essentially. It would be really bad that the entire community has been structured for the revelation, and then God wipes out all the top brass, basically. And so therefore God says, you saw me, you will die for this, just not right now. But what does this mean? Why are they sitting and eating and drinking? And what exactly did they see? Because in Exodus 33 it says, you cannot see my face and live. Do they see God's face? Well, what does it say exactly? In verse 10, it says, in the Hebrew, Vayiru et Elohei Yisrael. They saw the God of Israel. Do they see God's face? Do they see God's feet? Because it doesn't actually say that they do. It says, under God's feet there was a likeness of pavement, so maybe they see that. Which, interestingly, there are interesting commentaries that say that another way of pavement is brickwork. They see bricks of sapphire, and they're like, really? Bricks just like we had in Egypt, that we had to make our own bricks? So maybe God is revealing you can move from slavery to freedom, or from service of Pharaoh to service of God, and the bricks are a metaphor. Because this must be metaphor. It must be. Because if they see God, then they should die. The idea of a postponed punishment is Rashi trying to explain away why they don't die. But the Kabbalists, the mystics, explain this very differently. They don't see God's face. They don't see God's back. They don't see God's feet. They see the essence of God. They see the relationship with God. They don't see a manifestation. They don't see any kind of anthropomorphic physical representation that is banned. They don't see God's glory in full. What they see is the relationship. And that is brought out particularly in the Hebrew, because it says, Vayiru et Elohe Yisrael, which is the direct object pronoun et. As I shared in our Torah study, when you do an action in Hebrew towards a definitely defined noun, you have to include the word et. So, for example, I opened et the book. Or, as my hobby, I painted et the miniature. That's how biblical Hebrew works. You verb et the object. So the rabbis say, this is actually a really important word, even though you could just ignore it and say, well, it's a direct object marker. That's irrelevant. It's just grammar. The rabbis say, no, look, it contains the first letter and the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph to Tav. What is Aleph to Tav? It's everything. They see the everythingness of God. They see the relationship with God. They don't see God face to face, which will kill them, but suddenly they see how they can relate to God in a different way. So this, perhaps, is a deeply mystical text. If you read it literally, it's kind of bonkers. If you read it literally, it's a picnic. And that makes no sense, especially because Moses is able to be up on Sinai without food or drink for 40 days and 40 nights. He is sustained in a different way. The way I read this is that this is two kinds of sustenance, the spiritual sustenance and the physical sustenance, and how one elevates the other. So what they do is they see God in the sense of they see their relationship with God, they see how they depend on God, and then they bring that into what used to be totally mundane, eating and drinking. And they say, we can now experience God, we can elevate everything that we do. So even eating or drinking is something that we can use to connect to God. And in Judaism, we traditionally say 100 blessings a day to help us continually connect to God, to show us that there is nothing mundane, that everything can be imbued with relationship with God. And that's why we have prayers, not just for food, but for smelling flowers. We have a prayer after going to the bathroom to say, that's magnificent. And I can use even that as a way of encountering God. Say how wonderful it is that my body actually works. Everything is laden with relationship, is laden with potential. And I think that's what this is trying to say. That Moses, Aaron, Nadav, Avihu, and the 70 elders, they see that everything is connected, that God is connected to everything, and that everything can have a relationship or is laden with the potential of relationship with God. Before we continue with our service, just a couple of things to mention that are coming up in our community. Firstly, if you like to sing, if you like to dress up in costumes, if you like to get a little bit silly, especially if you're a bit of a Swiftie, or if you're curious to learn more of her music, we are now currently casting for our Purim Spiel, which is Esther's story, Taylor's version. No experience is necessary. The Spiel itself is going to be on March the 23rd. Our first rehearsal is Monday, so please contact Cantor Liana if you would like to be involved. We do need more people for our Spiel. We don't want to double up roles. I will share, it was about 3 years ago when we were doing the Purim Spiel on Zoom, and we were very short on the number of people. So I deliberately played 2 roles, and I deliberately dressed differently in between those 2 roles, and I even put on a totally different accent in between the 2 roles, and still had people saying to me, why did you keep switching your clothes? And afterwards, and I said, because I was playing 2 parts. And said, wow, I had no idea. I said, I was giving a Scottish accent and a South London accent. They said, I didn't hear it. So we really don't want people to do 2 roles unless, if possible. So we do encourage you to be part of that spiel. Also, I want to mention in our library, we've just launched a bit of an appeal for individuals, for members to help us get some more books for the library, particularly related to Israel and Israel-Palestine. And so we sent out the book list yesterday with my pre-Shabbat message. We encourage you to look, we encourage you to donate, so that we can buy those books. And let us know. I would like to buy this book on behalf of the library because there's a lot going on in that region at the moment, and we want people to be as well informed as possible. So please have a look at that pre-Shabbat message, and then please assist us in helping to make our library even more extraordinary. And for those who are here, if you haven't visited our library recently, I really do encourage it. Our service continues on page 253. On page 253, we think of all those in need of comfort, healing, and support at this time. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. We pray in particular at this time for Manny Marzak, Dania Hannam, Sandy Herzon, Leah Butt Gershon Vaudia, Ariana Chavez, Michael Kaplan, Cosette Hansen, Cassandra Wenzel, Nora Gluck, Carl Stalnaker, Ellen Lowenberg, Stephen Sherry Harwitt, Jenny Kaufman, Jan Simonoff, Jane Siegel, Frank Remmert, Barbara Mayer, Carol Rudman, Jane Hochberg, Carlos Villarreal, and Gary Polkowitz, as well as for Neil Radin, Sophie Hochberg-Farrer, Ingrid Gustafsson, Jerry Steinberg, Faggy Marks, James Hetherington, Sandra Levine, Martha Ramirez, Jeff Smith, Kathy Romero, Maria Romero, Marsha Landry, Carmen Rodriguez, Jerry Newry Home, and Lila and Aaron Eckel. If there's anyone else in need of healing who you know, please share their name out loud. Mi sheberach imotenu, meko habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We wish refuah shalema, a complete and total healing, to all those who we have named, and also to all those whom we hold in our hearts. We turn to page 283. Page 283, I invite you to rise as you are able as we open the Ark and start our concluding prayers with Aleinu. Rise up like the sun, O God, of all humanity. Cause light to go forth over Ushamo Echad. Please be seated, albeit for a moment, as we turn to page 294. And as we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, as well as those who died at this season in years past and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. And I will share the names of those being remembered by our community. If I mention the name of a loved one, I invite you to rise and to remain standing. As we remember in particular during the Shiva, John Wolfish, and during the Shloshim we remember Carl Garver, Myra Greenspan, Annette Strom, and Ellen Ruth Zilka. And on their yard sites we remember Ruth Charlesworth, Elaine Civrello, Norbert Friedman, Muriel Gilbert, Sylvia Golub, Maya Gottlieb, Irene Harwitz, Jack Kaplan, Bernice Lapan, Isaac Lowenberg, Christine McFarlane, Donald Montoya, David Nadler, Earl Olafson, Charles Pollock, Betty Ragot, Jack Rosenberg, Gary Ruderman, Martin Schub, Sonny Schwab, Frank Shara, and Robert Wertheim. If there's anyone else being remembered at this time, please rise and share their name. Then I invite those present to rise as you are able, and we say Kaddish in particular on behalf of those who are following our service. Yitgadav yitkadash shemei rabbah, ba'amad divrei chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon, v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala b'zman kariv v'imu amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach la'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithada v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha berichu la'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mroma hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. Oseh shalom b'mroma hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, their memories will always be for a blessing. We round off our service on page 321. On page 321. Adon olam Hashem alach b'terem kol yitzin nivra li'et nasa v'chevsa kol azay melech shemo nikra. Adon olam Hashem alach b'terem kol yitzin nivra li'et nasa v'chevsa kol azay melech shemo nikra. V'yacharei kichlot hakol levado yimlach nora v'hu haya v'hu hoveh v'hu yihyeh b'tifara. Adon olam Hashem alach b'terem kol yitzin nivra li'et nasa v'chevsa kol azay melech shemo nikra. V'hu echad v'ein sheni l'hamshi lo lahachbira v'li reshit v'li tachlit v'lo ha'oz v'ha'misra. Adon olam Hashem alach b'terem kol yitzin nivra li'et nasa v'chevsa kol azay melech shemo nikra. V'hu eli v'chai go'ali v'tzuchev li be'et sarah v'hu nisi u'manos li menat kosi be'yom nekra. Adon olam Hashem alach b'terem kol yitzin nivra li'et nasa v'chevsa kol azay melech shemo nikra. V'yado avkit ruchi b'yet tishan v'ya'ira v'imruchi gaviyati Adonai li v'lo ira. Adon olam Hashem alach b'terem kol yitzin nivra li'et nasa v'chevtza kol azai melech shemo nikra. Please rise as you are able for our concluding blessing. Yivarechenu Adonai v'yishmerenu. May God bless us and keep us. Ya'eh Adonai panav eleinu v'chunenu. May God's face shine upon us and be gracious to us. Yisa Adonai panav eleinu v'yasem lanu shalom. May God lift up the divine presence toward us and always grant us peace. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Feel free to follow along our Kiddush, which is on page 300. For those who are following our service online, now is a good time to get any wine or grape juice or any challah. The challah isn't part of Kiddush. The challah is part of the lunch. The Kiddush is the sanctification of the day, which is done traditionally over grape, either wine or grape juice. And then the reason that we say motzi afterwards is so that we can start our meal. And there is a custom that you go from here straight into the meal, essentially. And so how long are you allowed? It's like 70 minutes. So you can do other things, but you need to not say any other blessing, interestingly enough, until you're in the meal. The rabbis are very machmir, very strict about this kind of thing. You can't say a blessing and then go and do something else. You've got to do the thing. And so it is a mitzvah to eat on Shabbat, to celebrate Shabbat. So we say our Kiddush, and then we start our lunch. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat, l'doratam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai, et hashamayim v'et haaretz, uvayom hashvihi Shabbat vayinafash. Al kem barak Adonai et yom hashabbat v'ykadeshehu savri chavrai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. B'tei avon and Shabbat Shalom. Come take challah. Oh, and to be kachunked as well. Oh, yes. A weekend of double kachunking. Yeah, that's the one there. Kachunk away.